that time, I got reincarnated in another world and became a demon lord's maid. A novel written by Bon BFM and published on Royal Road. Chapter 1, Into the Purple Sky. My name was Akari Sato. For 16 years, the world was a collection of white ceilings, the rhythmic hum of a heart monitor, and the smell of sterile antiseptic. I had a heart that didn't know how to beat right and lungs that treated every breath like a chore. My friends, the few who still visited the sick girl in our small, boring town, would talk about the festivals, the summer heat, and the thrill of running through the park. I would just smile, nodding along while clutching a pillow to my chest. Then the monitor flatlined. There was no bright light, just a sudden cold silence and then warmth. The first thing I felt was the prickle of life. It wasn't the scratchy hospital sheets. It was long, coarse blades of grass. I opened my eyes and gasped. My lungs didn't burn. My chest didn't ache. I sat up abruptly, my long dark hair falling over my shoulders, and I realized I was wearing nothing but a thin, oversized white hospital gown that barely clung to my curves. I looked at my hands. They were pale, but the ghostly blue tint of oxygen deprivation was gone. I stood up, my legs trembling not from weakness, but from the sheer novelty of movement. I began to walk. Then I began to jog. Then, for the first time in my entire existence, I ran. I ran through the field, laughing hysterically. The grass was long, nearly up to my waist, and tinged with a strange, luminescent glow. The sky above wasn't blue. It was a deep, bruised purple streaked with clouds that looked like spilled ink. I didn't care. I was outside. I was alive. After a few minutes of frantic, joyous sprinting, I stumbled upon a small clearing. It looked like an abandoned campsite. There were charred logs and draped over a fallen stone, a set of heavy brown rags. It looked like a traveler's cloak, torn and dusty. I quickly pulled it on, wrapping the coarse fabric around my body to hide the flimsy gown beneath. The cloak was huge on me, but it felt like armor. I was about to explore further when a sound froze the blood in my newly healthy veins. SSSSHHH, you smell that grog. The voice was deep, like grinding rocks. I dropped to my knees, hiding behind a large boulder, my heart hammering against my ribs. I took a tiny peek. My breath hitched. They were monsters. Trolls the size of delivery trucks, their skin a mottled, sickly green and covered in warts. Their muscles were like knotted tree trunks, and they carried clubs that looked like uprooted oaks. Human, the other one grunted, sniffing the air with a nose the size of a dinner plate. Fresh, not like the salted meat the goblins trade. I haven't had a treat like this in a long time. The ground shook as they began to walk in my direction. The scent, they were tracking my scent. Panic, cold and sharp, took over. I didn't think. I didn't plan, I just bolted. I broke from the cover of the rocks and sprinted back into the tall grass. I could hear them roar behind me, a sound that vibrated in my very marrow. I was screaming, crying, the tears blurring my vision as I pushed through the stalks that were now taller than my head. Why, I shrieked, my voice cracking. Why is my first time outside my room like this? Someone help, please, if you can hear me. Help me. A massive boulder whistled past my ear, smashing into the ground ahead of me with the force of a bomb. Dirt sprayed my face. I stumbled, my feet catching on a root, but I scrambled back up, fueled by pure, unadulterated terror. This wasn't the beautiful fantasy world from the stories. This was a nightmare. As I sprinted for my life, a flickering vision suddenly overtook my senses, overlaying the tall grass with the image of a cavernous hall of obsidian. For a heart-stopping moment, I felt like a ghost caught between two places, seeing a crimson-eyed shadow looming on a distant throne, even while my physical legs still thrashed against the dirt and my lungs burned for air. The chamber was silent, draped in shadows that seemed to breathe. In the center of the room sat a throne carved from a single block of obsidian. A man sat there, his chin resting on his hand, seemingly asleep. The camera of fate zoomed in, focusing on his closed eyelids. The air around him distorted with a heavy, crushing pressure. Suddenly, his eyes snapped open. They didn't just look, they burned. A fierce, glowing crimson light ignited in the darkness, pupils shifting into intricate, concentric patterns, the mark of a ruler. The vision disappeared from my sight. I was still running, my lungs finally starting to protest, though the pain was nothing compared to the trolls' heavy footfalls behind me. They were gaining. I could smell the rot on their breath. "Gotcha, little snack," the lead troll bellowed, raising his club. Suddenly, the world turned red. A beam of concentrated crimson light, thinner than a finger but brighter than a star, hissed through the air. It passed inches from my shoulder and struck the lead troll square in the chest. There was no explosion, just a sickening sizzle as it punched through his heart and out the back. The monster didn't even scream. He simply folded, his massive body hitting the earth with a thud that felt like an earthquake. The second troll skidded to a halt, his eyes bulging in terror. Standing a few meters in front of me was a man. He wore a high-collared black coat that seemed to swallow the light around it. His hair was as dark as a raven's wing, and his skin was unnaturally pale. As my eyes met his, a shiver raced down my spine that had nothing to do with the trolls. His aura was like a physical weight, a dark, suffocating ocean of power. "Picking on a little girl," the man said, his voice smooth and terrifyingly calm. "And a human one at that. Here I thought you trolls had more pride than that." The surviving troll dropped his club, falling to his knees and pressing his forehead into the dirt. "Forgive, great one, forgive. We did not know this meat belonged to." The man didn't move his body, only his arm. He lifted his hand and slowly closed it into a fist. "You dare talk out of turn," he whispered. In an instant, pillars of violet-black flame erupted directly out of the troll's skin. The creature didn't even have time to shriek before he was reduced to a pile of fine, gray ash. Not a single blade of grass around him was scorched. "Be glad your soul is intact," the man muttered. He turned his gaze toward the sky, ignoring me for a moment as if calculating something in the stars. Then he spoke without looking back. "You're the one who called me, and also this part of the realm is my territory. What are you doing here?" I collapsed. My legs finally gave out and I hit the dirt, trembling so hard my teeth chattered. Thank you," I sobbed, the confusion swirling in my head. I am Akari Sato Akari. As for why, I don't know, I just woke up here." I looked up at him, my eyes wide and pleading. "Can you please tell me where I am?" The man turned his head slightly, looking over his shoulder at me. His eyes were the most beautiful and terrifying things I had ever seen. The red irises were moving, the patterns shifting like a kaleidoscope. "I feel the aura of a human within you," he said, his voice echoing in the clearing. "But not one from this world. If I had to guess, you were either summoned or reincarnated here. If you must know, you are in a different world entirely, far from your home. And a quick warning before I go. Foreigners are forbidden to have normal lives in this world, so be careful. Though I bet you'll become some demon's slave within 2 days even if you hide. Good luck." He began to walk away, his cloak billowing despite the lack of wind. "Please wait," I screamed, reaching out. The thought of being alone in this purple sky nightmare was worse than death. "Is there anything I can do for you? Please. Give me a job, protect me, please." He stopped. He didn't turn around at first. "And what?" he asked, his tone mocking. "Could a fragile thing like you do for someone like me?" I can clean, I can cook," I shouted, the words tumbling out. "In my previous world, that was all I could do while I was stuck in bed. Please. I don't want to die, not now that I finally have a second chance to live." The man finally turned fully toward me. Those mystic eyes narrowed, the patterns spinning rapidly as if he were peering into my very soul, checking for the scent of a lie. After a long, silent moment, the crushing pressure of his aura softened, just a fraction. "My name is 𝗪𝗡𝗥, he said, his voice dropping to a low, resonant rumble. "Demon Lord of the Black Obsidian Throne, and from today on I will protect you and look over you. In return." He stepped closer, his shadow falling over me. "You will be my maid." 𝗪𝗡𝗥 reached out, his gloved hand appearing in my field of vision. It was steady and cool as I tentatively placed my smaller, trembling hand into his. "Let's go home now," he said, his voice losing some of its sharp edge. "Let me show you where you will spend the rest of your days." Before I could even blink, the world twisted. The field of long grass and the purple sky vanished in a blur of distorted light. A split second later, the ground beneath my feet was no longer soft dirt, but cold, polished stone. We stood before a set of massive black iron gates that reached toward the heavens. Beyond them sat a castle so vast it felt like a city of its own, a sprawling silhouette of Gothic spires and dark stone that seemed to stretch for miles. Above it, the sky was a permanent, swirling vortex of dark clouds, and a heavy, rhythmic rain began to pelt against the stone, washing away the dust of the fields. "Before I let you in, I don't want you to be this filthy," 𝗲𝗡 muttered, looking at my tattered rags and the dirt smeared on my face. With a flick of his wrist, the heavy gates groaned open. Standing just inside the threshold was a woman who made my jaw drop. She looked like she stepped right out of a high-end anime, tall, with long, flowing blue hair and a maid outfit that looked far too elegant for manual labor. But I couldn't help but notice, it was hard not to, that she was incredibly well endowed. Her chest was, frankly, massive, stretching the fabric of her white apron to its absolute limit. "Back already, master?" she asked, her voice like honey. She bowed deeply, then her eyes, sharp and inquisitive, fixed immediately on me. "And what do we have here? A little stray." "Something like that," 𝗲𝗡 replied, letting go of my hand. "And how many times should I say not to call me master? Just use my name and that counts for you too, Akari." He turned to me, then back on the other girl. "Show her around. Give her a bath and find her an outfit like yours. From today on, she is your new partner. She will help you serve me." The blue-haired maid's eyes lit up with a mischievous glint. "A partner? Oh, how delightful. I was getting lonely in this big old place." 𝗲𝗡 didn't say another word before he vanished into the shadows of the main hall, his heavy cloak swirling behind him. The older maid turned to me, placing her hands on her hips. "Well, Akari, was it? I'm Lyra. Come along, little one. You're shivering and you smell like troll breath. Let's get you cleaned up." As we walked through the cavernous hallways, I felt like a literal ant. The ceilings were held up by pillars carved into the shapes of dragons and demons, and every torch on the wall burned with a steady, magical blue flame. Lyra-san," I asked quietly, clutching my oversized cloak. "That man, 𝗲𝗡-sama, is he? Scary, he killed those monsters so easily." Lyra let out a soft, musical giggle, her chest bouncing with the movement. "Him? Oh, he's a legend, actually. Don't let that cold attitude of yours fool you. Out of the 10 great demon lords who rule this realm, 𝗲𝗡-sama is probably the most caring. He just has a very dramatic way of showing it." I looked down at my feet. I told him I could cook and clean. I lived my whole life in a hospital bed back home. I don't want to be useless. Lyra stopped and looked at me, her expression softening. "A hospital? So you were a little broken, weren't you? Well, in this castle, your past doesn't matter. You're under his protection now. And believe me, being the maid to a demon lord is the safest place for a girl like you to be." We finally reached a set of double doors that opened into a bathroom the size of my entire old house. The tub was a sunken pool of steaming water, filled with fragrant oils and flower petals. "All right, off with those rags," Lyra said playfully, reaching for my cloak. I blushed furiously, stepping out of the tattered brown cloth and the thin hospital gown. As I stood there, feeling the steam hit my skin, Lyra paused. She circled around me, her eyes scanning my figure with a humming sound of approval. My, she teased, a playful smirk on her lips. "For such a young thing who lived in a bed, you've certainly got some curves, haven't you? You might be a bit shorter than me, but you've got a figure that's going to make the guards' heads spin." She poked my side, making me squeal. "Don't be shy. We're both girls here. Now, get in the water. We need to make you look like a proper maid before Master calls for his tea." As I sank into the hot, luxurious water, the warmth seeped into my bones, finally making me realize that the cold, boring life of Sato Akari was truly over. I was in a world of monsters and magic, serving a man who could burn the world with a flick of his wrist. And strangely, for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid. Lyra helped me into the new uniform, and I couldn't believe how it felt. Back home, even the softest cotton pajamas felt heavy and irritating against my frail skin, But this fabric was like a second skin. It was crisp and white where it needed to be, but the black dress part was made of a material that felt like silk woven with moonlight. It hugged my waist and bust perfectly, supporting me without feeling tight. "It's so comfy," I whispered, spinning around. The skirt flared out beautifully. Lyra looked toward the high, narrow window, watching the position of the dim, purple sun behind the rain clouds. "No time for admiring yourself just yet, sweetie. Let's go to the kitchen and make that tea. Master is very particular about his afternoon brew." We walked down a hallway that seemed to go on forever, our footsteps echoing against the high stone arches. As we walked, Lyra explained the layout of the castle, the armory, the barracks, and the restricted dark library that I was never to enter unless I wanted my soul eaten by a book. When we reached the kitchen, I watched Lyra work. She pulled out a jar of what looked like dried, shriveled purple mushrooms. She began to steep them in water that smelled faintly of sulfur. "Is that tea?" I asked, tilting my head. "The finest in the demon realm," Lyra said proudly. "It gives a lovely, bitter kick that wakes the dead." I crinkled my nose. It looked like swamp water. Back in my room, when I was too sick to eat, I used to obsess over tea-making videos. I knew the exact temperature for oolong, the scent of fresh jasmine, and the sweetness of chamomile. "Lyra-san, is there a plant in the garden with small, white star-shaped flowers? And maybe something with jagged green leaves that smells like, well, like fresh rain?" "Oh, you mean the starweed and the bittermint? We usually use those for poultices," she replied. "Could we try something, please? I think I can make something he'll actually enjoy." Lyra looked skeptical but saw the spark in my eyes. "All right, but we have to be fast. Master hates waiting." We hurried to the internal courtyard. I found the plants I needed. The starweed was surprisingly similar to a high-quality jasmine. I gathered the leaves and petals, rushing back to the kitchen to process them. I bruised the leaves just enough to release the oils and used the residual heat from the stove to dry them instantly. "1 minute," Lyra hissed, checking a magical sandglass. "We have to go." We quite literally had to sprint. I held the silver tray with both hands, my heart racing as we dashed through the halls. I had to keep my balance, making sure not a single drop of the golden amber liquid spilled onto the pristine white saucers. We reached the throne room doors just as the last grain of sand fell. The heavy doors creaked open. Malphaz was sitting exactly where I'd first seen him when I saw him in that vision I had while running from those trolls, looking bored and dangerous. I stepped forward, my knees shaking, and set the cup down. "Your tea, Malphaz-sama." He looked at the tea weirdly. It wasn't the usual murky purple. It was clear and smelled of spring. He leaned in and smelled it. Then he smelled it again, and again. His crimson eyes narrowed as he took a small sip. He paused, then he took another, then another. Before I could blink, he tipped his head back and gulped the whole thing down in one go. "Well," he said, setting the cup back down with a sharp clack, "that proves that you are not useless. From tomorrow on, you will serve this same drink." "Yes, master," I bowed deeply. As we were excused and the doors shut behind us, Lyra leaned in and whispered, "Oh, that's his way of saying he absolutely loved it. I've never seen him drain a cup that fast." We chatted more as the night set in, though in this land, night just meant the clouds turned a darker shade of charcoal. Lyra led me to our shared quarters. It was a massive room, bigger than my entire house back home, with 2 plush beds and a large wooden table. "What about supper?" I asked, looking around. "Shouldn't we go serve him?" "Nah," Lyra said, kicking off her shoes. "The head butler handles the heavy meals. We maids only serve food every 4 days when the generals visit. Look, he already put our food on the table." There was a spread of roast meat, thick bread, and some kind of glowing fruit. It was fantastic. The meat was tender and the bread was warm, but as I ate, I couldn't help but think of the dishes from my world. A bowl of hot ramen or some sweet mochi. I wondered if I could recreate those here too. That night, I slept better than I ever had in my life. No heart monitor, no coughing, just deep, dreamless sleep. Knock, knock, knock. I sat up, rubbing my eyes as Lyra went to the door. A tall, stiff man in a butler's suit stood there. "Master wants the girl in his throne room in 10 minutes. Both of you must come." I scrambled to get dressed, my heart thumping. Did I do something wrong? When we arrived at the throne room, the morning light was filtering through the purple clouds. "Good morning, 𝗪𝗡𝗥𝗏, I said softly. He didn't speak, only offering a brief, formal hand gesture in greeting. He signaled for Lyra to stand to his side, while I was told to stand directly in front of him. As we walked across the giant room, Lyra leaned toward my ear and whispered, "He's going to give you a new name, or at least extend your current one to claim you. A demon lord's words hold power, you know. I'm here as a witness. It means he trusts you." My breath caught. "Kneel," 𝗪𝗡𝗥𝗏 commanded. I dropped to my knees, looking up at him. I glanced at Lyra, who was standing next to his throne. She gave me a supportive wink. 𝗪𝗡𝗥𝗏 lifted his hand, his red eyes fixed on mine. "As a gesture of thanks for your service and your unique contributions," he said, his voice echoing with a strange, magical weight, "I grant you a name that carries the power of my words." He raised his hand, and I felt a surge of warmth wash over me, like I was being wrapped in a cloak of fire. "From now on, your name is Akari Vespera,"